At this point, I usually introduce our guest speaker. But today we don't have a guest speaker. We have an old friend, an old member, an old family member who is our speaker today and that we're very glad to have back. To us, he's Hugh and he writes cool stuff. To the world, he has changed the publishing landscape. Not only did he self-publish a novella on Kindle that has become 8-book series by Doubleday?
I'd have to count. I'd have to get them all in one place.
But he's the first to negotiate a contract with a major publisher and keep the ebook rights. So even if he makes good on his threat to at some point pull the plug and sail around the world with his wife and disappear, it's not going to happen. He's going to be in the history books and he's going to be part of publishing lore forever. So we've made it very clear that we don't want to hear from each other, we want to hear from you. So I will turn it over.
I told you what this group means to me once, but I'll say it again. It's really touching to come back and see you all. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because I'll just be a blubbering mess up here. But I got a lot of great hugs today, and that's what I came back for. So we can go get pizza now if you guys want. I'm getting a lot of credit for stuff that's going to happen to somebody, and I think this is true of history, where there's someone who's the first, and someone was always going to be the first because the forces align in such a way that it's inevitable. So I get credit for things that are really a lot of dumb luck. I just happen to be writing at the right time in history, and I've just taken it in as a tourist. Like I feel like I've been sent by readers on this ride, and I'm taking in the view, and I'm here today to report back what I've seen. But I'll take it back to a time period that Bill Kaiser will understand. Jeb Stuart was famous for riding. He was a cavalryman for the South in the Civil War. And he was famous for riding around Lee's army in the North. I think he did it twice. And this was kind of an embarrassment for the North and one of the few victories that the South felt and rallied around. To escape detection with hundreds of men in the woods and live for months at a time and scout this territory. One of his riders was named Wade Hampton, who my grandfather was named after. And my father was named after him, and if it wasn't for my brother getting in the way, I would be a Wade Hampton. Instead, I'm named after my other grandfather. But I feel like what I've done really is taken this ride around this publishing landscape, and it is a wild wilderness out there. And it's been an honor for me to see major publishing houses work with small publishers, self-publish, go to writing conferences, belong to a writing group, and just embrace every pothole and every little hollow that publishing has out there. I feel like I've seen a lot. I don't know if that makes me an expert on anything. So the next thing I want to say is anything I say is anecdotal. It's what's happened to me. Everyone has different experiences. The things that work for me may never work for anyone else. They may never work for me again. There's a lot of luck involved in publishing. So you can't take my experiences as some sort of roadmap to success. If the major publishers can't even replicate what happens with million-dollar budgets, advertising budgets, it's just up to the people. It's up to the readers. I celebrate that. It's more of a democracy than it is an autocracy. So I think it's good that it works out that way. So I'm going to do a really quick synopsis of my publishing history. Don't want to bore you to tears with it, but I wanted to be a writer since I was 12, and I gave up on it after several tries of trying to write a novel. You get 2 or 3 chapters in. I mean, we're all writers. We've all been through this, right? We all tried to write that first novel. How many times? A dozen times before we finally got through it. And I gave up, and it wasn't until I settled here in Boone with my wife and had a hard time finding a job, which a lot of spouses who come with ASU employees, it's like, God, the college kids have all the work, and there's really not much industry here. So I started writing. For the first time, I had the time in my life to write. And I finished my first novel, which was the Mollified book, and and I'll pass this around. And don't read the whole thing, Nora. You have to just sample it, then you pass it along. So after completing this, I thought, what have I done? I've actually written a book. Now what's next? I was waiting for Oprah to call me to get on her show, and she never called. But I started looking, people were reading this online, and I was going to give it away on my blog, but people were saying you should try to get this published. So I investigated that, and I got a deal with a small publishing house called Norlights Press, and they were going to give me a little advance and pay me royalties and help me edit it and do the cover and all that stuff. And I thought, well, this is more than I ever thought I would get out of a publishing deal. And then I felt like a real author, but not really. I just felt like, you know, I had this one book out there. Now what am I supposed to do? I need to really be a writer. I need to, you know, make this serious, take it like a profession. So I started coming to high country writers. I looked up, you know, what are you supposed to do as a writer? You Google this, because no one tells you. I can go to school for it. And everyone says join a writing group, and you usually have to do it online because there's not many writing groups active like you guys are in your area. And I thought, well, Boone probably is not going to have a writing group. I found one of the most active writing groups in North Carolina, one of the oldest and one of the most well-attended. So I don't know if you guys remember when I first started coming in here, but I think people thought I was looking for the bathroom because I didn't fit in. And I'll share you, in a moment of candor here, I'll tell you that I still don't really feel like an author. I feel like someone who just enjoys writing. And I thought coming here would help me feel like an author, and it did a little bit, but it really made me feel young. You guys, that's all you would tell me. Every time I came in, you would say, it's so nice to have young people here. And I was going through a midlife crisis at the time. I was in my, you know, getting up in my 30s, and I know it sounds naive and foolish, but, you know, getting gray and not feeling as active as I was. And all I had was beautiful women telling me every day how young I was and wanted to give me a hug. And I don't know if I came here for the writing or for just the esteem boost. I would walk out of here just feeling like $1 million. So that began my real dedication to writing. And I met someone here who had done NaNoWriMo. I'd never heard of it before. I don't remember which member had done a, Nora. Oh yeah, you did. A NaNoWriMo, national novel. Yes, where you write a novel in the month of November. And yeah. And you were 91 when you published your first? 88? First book. It's amazing. I use this as an example all the time, not to put off writing, but that the people who think they'll never get it done, that the time has passed them, it's not true.
It's this organization that made me able to do it.
Did you say you were born in 7? You were not. No, there's not. And that's what, when I wrote my first book, it was because I went to a conference and I came home so energized. And meeting twice a month did the same thing. You go home wanting to write, and it's important to have that. So, man, I couldn't stop writing. After I finished my first novel and realized I could do it, I got addicted and started, I think I've written like 3 novels a year for the last 3 or 4 years. And not all of them are horrible from what I've been told. So I guess you can mix some quality in with the quantity. And I was working at the ASU bookstore. It was a 30-hour-a-week job, making $10 an hour, shelving books, dreaming of your book being on the shelf one day. And I had, I think, 8 or 9 novels out at the time. And I wrote a short story that I thought was the least marketable thing that I'd ever written. It's, 40-something pages long. I put it online for 99 cents, and I made a little paperback like this for $6. It was the cheapest I could make it and still be able to print the thing. And I didn't promote it at all. I put it out there and didn't mention it on my website and went back to writing my other stuff. And the lesson here is that I don't know anything about what readers want because this is what took off. And I'll pass this around, but people say short fiction is dead, but it's kind of really cool that this like helped me quit my day job. And that was it was 2 years ago, almost to the day. It was July 30th in 2011 was when that went up. My boss was, when I put my notice in, because it's hard to get fired from ASU, my boss was so happy to put my notice in. He had a great talent pool to choose from. But yeah, she does a great job. I didn't know what I was doing. I actually got the job because I was there doing a book signing, and the person beside Bill, who runs the bookstore, was retiring, and he said, "You should apply." And I think he had like a minimum quota you have to have, for the job search. So I applied, and I think everyone else got sick the day we had interviews or something, and I got the job. But it was a perfect job for writing, and I put this story out there, and I would sit at the desk with Bill, and I could watch like this story go up the rankings. And this is what I did. What ASU paid me to do was to like refresh my Kindle page to watch sales come in. And I thought, Bill, something's going on. This is crazy. And he would say, get back to work. And we did that for weeks. And, well, this story struck a nerve, and the word of mouth that took off. Everyone was writing reviews, they were emailing me, and they were all asking for more in the story. And this is going to be a spoiler-filled talk, so I'll just tell you that everyone dies at the end. It's like Shakespeare. So I thought, well, what do you want the rest of the story? I mean, there's no one left. But I've never had people, wanting the next thing or asking me when my next work was coming out. So I dropped what I was doing, much to the chagrin of the 5 people who were waiting on that book, and started writing in a kind of a Dickinson style. I serialized the rest of the novel and released it in 5 ever increasingly long but still short bits. And together they make up one novel. Almost didn't collect them into a novel, but readers said, hey, can you save us the 5 clicks and just put the file into one thing? And so I called it the Wool Omnibus, and I threw it up there thinking maybe that one person would actually take that shortcut. Instead, that little collection of stories just shot up the charts. And when it went into the top of start with that way. When it went to the top of in the Amazon Top 100, that's when I was getting phone calls from agents, and people from Hollywood were calling, and it was the wrong number, but they were from Hollywood and they were calling me. So, oh, I appreciate that. I can't say that, and I'm not sure if I believe it, but I read a lot of unpublished work and work that's out there. And the writing is spectacular, and why mine and not theirs is a question that I think anyone in my position would have. So I appreciate that, but I do think a lot of it is just being fortuitous. I worked in a bookstore and saw great books that I read and that would hand sell to people, and I couldn't believe they didn't become national treasures. And then a book that I read and didn't really like so much was the one everyone needed. So maybe that's my tastes are just off. But did you ever read? Oh yeah. Oh, so that's when like agents were getting in touch with me, and man, at this point it was weird. I've always wanted to hear from an agent until I heard from one. And this has been a pattern that I've seen in this ride around the wilderness, that at every opportunity something was offered to me, it was like a week after I was desperate for it, and it became a theme. But so I told the first couple of agents who, the first thing they told me, like they told me their name, and then they said, you're aware that agents get 15%. And I said, what are we talking about? Are you like, so, they were seeing the success of the book, and I think, I will represent you. And I started thinking at this point, man, I was making a day what I made in a week shelving books, and that's when I thought, well, I can do this on my own, and I'll just bear down. And I'd already self-published 9 or so books by that point. I was comfortable with it. Oh, a little louder. So I was hesitant to sign with anyone, to sign away the control of my career. I just spent 3 years publishing and beating the streets, and working with you guys at the group and doing signings and going to conferences. And I thought, now that I'm having some success, I'd like to see how far I can take it. I soon learned that I would not be able to handle everything. Just too many requests were coming in, and I had this agent get in touch named Kristen Nelson, who is fantastic. And she said, look, you're doing fine in the U.S., and I agree with you that you can't do better with a publisher, most likely. And the economies of that is that you make 70% on the sale of a book when you're self-published, and it could be 15% with the publisher. So they have to sell 6 times as many to break even. And so she said, but we can go look at foreign markets in Hollywood. So I started this adventure with Kristen, and I kept doing what I was doing here, and she was selling the rights overseas. I think we're up to like 29 or 30 countries have bought the rights to Wool now because of her efforts. And Ridley Scott picked up the film rights because of her co-agent in Hollywood, which they've written the screenplay, and 20th Century Fox is attached, but we're a long way from an actual film.